Alright folks, how you doing? I want to welcome you to this video today. Today's June 6th, day 82 of this lockdown that I find myself in here in the Philippines. In today's video I'm going to talk about a movie I watched a couple nights ago. Maybe 3 nights ago, and then I ended up watching it again the next night. I don't know, I just found it intriguing. And for my normal subscribers, this ain't got nothing to do with travel. This is just a review on this movie that I stumbled across. You know, we got that Roku stick. And maybe I'm doing something wrong with the Roku stick, but like there's only two channels on there. Well, 2 movie channels that we watch is Popcorn Flicks, and it's called Tubi, T-U-B-I. All the other movie channels don't work right, or they'll like work to the first commercial, and it's because we're here in the Philippines. So I'm not saying that's the only thing that works on Roku, but Tubi and Popcorn Flicks is what we go to every night, try to pull up a movie, during this lockdown. I typically don't watch a lot of movies, but I think we all find ourselves watching a lot more TV, YouTube, movies, during this pandemic, whatever you want to call it. So the other night I'm scrolling, I come across this movie called The Man from Earth. And folks, I found a lot of things about that movie intriguing, interesting, like intellectually stimulating. Yeah, it's a movie. Yes, it's fiction. But I really enjoyed it, and I'll tell you, if you haven't seen the movie, stop my video right now, because everything I talk about during this movie is during this video is going to be spoilers to the movie. But it's called The Man from Earth. I think it's on Tubi. I have to check and see if it's on YouTube. And there's also a sequel from this. There's a sequel to this movie that I just found out about, and I haven't seen the sequel. So tonight I'm gonna dig up the sequel, and I'm gonna watch that. So watch the movie first, and then come back to this video. It's called The Man from Earth. All right, so here we go, and we're gonna start the spoilers. And I just pulled up Wikipedia just to reference, some information about the movie itself. It's a 2007 American drama science fiction film written by Jerome Bixby, directed by Richard Shankman, and it stars David Lee Smith as John Ullman, and John Ullman's basically the main character. The screenplay was conceived by Jerome Bixby, in the early 1960s, and completed on his deathbed in April 1998. And I'm just reading this for the first time, so that's quite interesting. I didn't know that. The plot focuses on John Ullman, a departing university professor who claims to be a Cro-Magnon or Magdalenian caveman who has secretly survived for more than 14,000 years. The entire film is set in and around Ullman's house during his farewell party, and is composed almost entirely of dialogue. And the plot advances through intellectual arguments between Ullman and his fellow faculty members. So that's basically it. This guy is supposedly around 14,000 years old, and he has survived basically by moving around frequently, and he's been teaching at this university for 10 years, and basically I think 10 years was his limit. Because think about it, if you and I know each other and 10 years later I haven't aged and you have, at some point after 10 years you're going to start questioning, hey, what's going on with you? So the plot is this guy's leaving his university. They tried to throw him a farewell party, and he didn't stay around long, and he goes back to his cabin and starts packing his belongings, and then everybody kind of followed him to the cabin. So as he's trying to pack up the final boxes, here comes everybody, and he rolls the dice and tells everybody his story about being a 14,000-year-old caveman. And then the intellectual arguments go from there. And again, it's fiction, but there's so many points during this movie that just made me stop and say, all right, I got to research that. I got to research that. I got to research that. And I appreciate things like that. So I really enjoyed the movie. And a couple more interesting things about it. If you're driving down the road, I think you could listen to this movie as a podcast. They could run this entire movie on a radio station or publish it as a podcast, and you would pretty much get the same effect, because the entire movie is set just in this guy's living room of his cabin. Pretty cool. Now, I never heard of it before, and when you say low budget film, according to this, the budget was $200,000. Now, this was in 2007. $200,000. And let's see, they said something about it was a real quick. Let me get down here to the cast and the production. Yeah, so $200,000, and the film was shot in 8 days after a week of rehearsals. Now that's pretty. That is just fascinating, right? Now, granted, this movie didn't make $1 billion, and it wasn't a huge box office smash hit. And I read something else that the release. Well, let me just say, $200,000. Is that right? How can you shoot a movie on a $200,000 budget with, I don't know, what is there, about eight, 9 actors? Now, granted, all you got to do is rent a cabin and get the film crew ready. It's not like there's any special effects, but I just find that fascinating. You know, it's like that Blair Witch Project movie, that they put all this together for a couple $100,000. Release and marketing. Let's see. It was released on DVD in North America November 13, 2007. And they put it on iTunes in 2009. And then, let's see, but in 2007, the producer publicly thanked people of BitTorrent who distributed the film without express permission, because that lifted the film's profile far and beyond their expectations. So I guess that's how it got a little bit of traction. And it's got all these little small-time screen awards and stuff. And then again, I found out today, through this research, that there's a sequel called The Man from Earth, Holocene, which was released in 2017. And it says it's available on Vimeo, but I went to Vimeo and you got to pay for it to rent it. Either way, I'm going to watch that movie tonight. Now, I guess it's just the concept that made this movie so interesting to me. Like, you know, what if there was a human being who had lived for 14,000 years? Now, it just kind of makes you think, like, I guess we would say these days, what is the average lifespan of a human? Now, it obviously depends on your lifestyle, you know, your access to medical care. There's a lot of factors, but let's put a nice round number on it, right? What is the like top end lifespan of a human? I'd say 100 years. If you have to put a nice round number on it, let's just say that these days, you know, humans can live to be 100. That's if you don't get into a car crash, you know, develop some type of cancer or something like that. If you just live to the fullest extent, what? Nice round number for me is 100 years. Yes, there's people older than that. Yes, most people don't make it to 100, but you could say you have the potential to live 100 years. And it was quite interesting in the movie. Somebody said humans are expected to live to be 190 years, but the things that we do take things down by 100 years. I don't know if that was science fiction, but it doesn't matter if it's fiction or if it's fact. It invoked thought in me to research that element and drill down to it. And that's what I say in a lot of my videos. Whether you agree with me or not, whether you think it's a good video or not, I've always said if I can invoke thought in the viewer, the reader, the student, I think you've pretty much won as an instructor, as an entertainer. And these guys on this video, this movie, they won because they have invoked so much thought in me to go out and research certain topics, like the topic of aging, certain time frames in history that they discussed during this movie. So for a $200,000 movie set in a guy's living room in a cabin, they certainly invoke thought in this guy, and that's a big win on their part. So if there was a guy 14,000 years old, now you could say, okay, well that's 1,400 lifetimes, but break it down. Let's just say an average person throughout history lived to be 50. So what is that? 2,800 lifetimes, right? Or is my math way off? I think that's 14,000 years. That would be 1,400. If you drop the zero, double that, 2,800. So 2,800 lifetimes this character in this movie has lived. And one of the points he said, it doesn't make me a genius, it just makes me old. And so you think that you would think, oh, this guy knows everything. No, he knows one man's perspective traveling through history. But you wonder, if a person had lived that long, what is their perception of things that are going on in the year 2020? If you really had a person like that and you could sit down, I think that would be the first question. I mean, obviously you got a million questions, but what do you think about the current world today? Because this guy would have had 2,800 lifetimes. Different lifetimes, different decades, different periods. I think he started out right at the Bronze Age. So he's seen drastic changes. Everything from war to natural disasters to, plague, viruses, climate change, has seen all that stuff. So if you got to ask a caveman, what do you think about the year 2020, the world's current events? Would he or she be shocked? That's the question. I think the answer could go both ways, because during 14,000 years, there's been a lot of crazy and disastrous things happen throughout history. So you fast forward to current day, I think everybody has said, hey, 2020 is however you perceive it, not a good year. Between everything that's been going on. Well, how would people in, World War I perceive things to be, or World War II, or during the plague of 1918, 1919? And back up through history, Mount Vesuvius, Pompeii. The folks during that time thought the world was coming to an end when that volcano cooked off. So without making this video an hour-long production, if you're looking for just a good movie that's thought-invoking, it's called The Man from Earth. I'll put the information, the links down in the description where you can find it. It's worth kicking back, cracking open a beer. And it's not no action-packed thriller. There ain't no explosions. There ain't no special effects. It's just a group of people, a group of characters who are supposedly intellectuals, sitting around discussing this man's ride through 14,000 years of history. And the other thing that is quite interesting is with modern science, with today's science, with the technology that we possess to, let's talk about current events as far as viruses. To conduct these experiments on viruses, whether it's called gain of function, in other words, you take the virus and add things to it, enhance it, or loss of function, take stuff away. You're talking about manipulating do we call a virus an organism? We're manipulating this virus that can't even be seen. That's how far science has gone. So is it so far to say that at some point, or maybe we're already at the point, that science can truly prevent the aging process? Now, what they were talking about in this movie is that somehow his cells, they totally regenerate. You take some animals, they lose a tooth, the tooth regenerates. This is constant, right? But in humans, we lose a tooth, a permanent tooth that doesn't regenerate. You can tweak that DNA somehow in some way to where humans will start regenerating teeth like sharks, right? The technology is either there or it's coming. So at what point does technology and medicine basically say, okay, we're going to stop all the cells in the body from aging, or we're going to allow all cells in the human body to regenerate on a monthly basis, a 24-hour basis, whatever, and therefore theoretically making a person immortal. Now, obviously, they can die from a gunshot to the head. It doesn't make them invincible, but it makes them immortal from an aging standpoint. They're not going to die of natural causes. And if that technology is advanced, at that point, there shouldn't be any more cancer. There shouldn't be any more of these diseases, because the technology is going to be there to correct it at the nano level. Nanotechnology will at one point be able to correct cancer. Wow. And folks, all this stuff that I just talked about, maybe you find absolutely boring. But being, hanging out on the beach, and a lot of people look at me and think I'm just a big beach bum living over here in Southeast Asia, staying drunk all the time, drinking. Well, that's part of it sometimes. And there's not a whole lot that I miss about living in the West. There's a few things. There's different types of conversations. And when I say different types of conversations, like, if you're sitting in a bar with a group of people, very rarely does the conversation turn to things like nanotechnology and bioengineering and shit like that. You're talking about food, you're talking about other bars, you're talking about chicks, you're talking about beaches, you're talking about other countries to travel to. They're travel related conversations for the most part. So I realized that watching this movie, I mean, what I wouldn't give to be able to go to some type of, I don't want to say conference, but some type of little intellectual gathering like that, where I'm the dumbest bastard in the room, and just sit there and listen to a group of people discuss a topic at a very high intellectual level. Now, yeah, I can get on YouTube, and I found myself throughout this pandemic watching symposiums from virologists where they've debated everything from gain of function research to animal passage research, all of these issues connected with the study of viruses, virology, the ethics behind it. Should we be doing this type of research? Should we not be doing this type of research? Which, again, most people are not going to sit there and watch a 2-hour debate on this. But I do. I find that absolutely fascinating. So it would be pretty cool to step into that forum, and I'll probably just sit there and keep my mouth shut. But if I had a question, to be able to raise my hand and ask a question in that type of forum. Okay, back to the movie, The Man from Earth. $200,000. Shout out to everybody involved in that movie. I thought the acting was great. I mean, I really felt like I was just listening to a conversation of people sitting around. So I thought the acting and the way they were portraying themselves as college professors, pretty cool. Main character did a great job. And it's like, damn, could I make a movie like that on a budget of, say $20,000? Can I make some type of movie like that? Maybe I'll try it. I try to make a 90-minute no shit movie. I guess I'd have to write a script first and come up with a story. Well, folks, I hope everybody's doing okay around the world. I'm kind of still locked down here. Well, I am still locked down here. I have to have a travel pass just to cross over onto the Olongapo side. If I want to go to Angeles City or Manila, I have to go to the police station and get a pass and do a medical check. So really nothing much has changed here for us. So we're looking at the next milestone being June 15th. Maybe there's a change at that point. And I think you just have to look in like 15-day blocks. Is there changes coming, The 15th, the 1st. At some point we will break free from this prison. And I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to going to the beach. I'm looking forward to traveling. I'm looking forward to getting on a bus. Eating in a crowded restaurant. All those little things that humanity has been deprived of over the past 3 months for no valid reason. Initially it was a valid reason because we didn't know what we didn't know. Once the data came in, everything should have been fucking canceled, but unfortunately that's not the path most governments have taken. So folks, maybe I've already talked too long. But I just saw a good movie. If you don't enjoy it, whatever. If you do watch it, come back, leave a comment. Let me know if it invoked any thought for you to do research, or if this video invoked any thought. But folks, right there, hit that Overstay Road sign or whatever that little subscribe graphic is and get on board my channel. Food, beer, visas, bad behavior, whatever the heck I want to talk about. There's no niche here. Never will be. It's just whatever I want to do. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out.